Hello and welcome to your monthly annual review of emergency response and bloodborne pathogens. Emergency situations are those that require immediate intervention by the right person or the right team. Some types of emergency situations that can occur at the plant are medical emergencies, spills, and fires. These are managed by the first aid team or the heat team. Other emergency situations involve threats, weather, which are managed by the leadership team, and power outages, managed by the in-house utilities team. For injuries and illnesses and medical emergencies, dial 0 right away and dispatch a first aider to the scene. Allow them to help the situation in determining whether further help is needed. Don't go it alone. Dispatch first aiders. When you dial 0, be prepared to give specific information, including your name, location, and the nature of the incident, so it can be relayed accurately to the first aider that's responding. If the rescue squad is needed, provide security with any additional information that they request. When first aiders arrive, please move out of the way. You may be asked to assist with crowd control, retrieve first aid supplies, or assisting EMS to the precise location in the facility. But please, get out of the way of the first aider when they arrive. One final word about medical emergencies. Please be courteous when an employee is receiving medical treatment either on the floor or in the first aid office. Provide them with the privacy they deserve while receiving medical assistance. And don't repeat what you hear or see to your peers, including personal medical conditions. Spills and fires are two different types of emergencies, but both are managed by the Hershey Emergency Action Team, or the heat team. Let's talk first a little bit about spills. What is a spill? Well, they can be categorized in three different groups in terms of emergency recognition, but the two that we're most worried about are releases that may require an emergency response, depending on the circumstances, or releases that clearly require an emergency response. Potential spill areas at Stewart's Draft include loading and unloading operations, roof areas, indoor and outdoor storage activities, indoor and outdoor manufacturing activities, dust or particulate generating processes, and on-site waste disposal. When a substance breaches its ordinary container in some fashion, it's considered a release or spill. The type of response required is dependent on whether the release is considered an incidental release or a hazardous release. Dispatch a heat team member by dialing 0 right away. One of the most important things that you can do to prepare for an emergency is to know and understand at least 2 emergency exits in your work area. Check them often as routes can change due to new equipment. An emergency exit should never be obstructed. If exits are blocked, fix it immediately. During fire emergencies, it's also important to notify the heat team. Dial 0 immediately to dispatch a heat team member in the event of a fire. Evacuate when you hear the evacuation alarm, an intermittent sounding alarm. And don't use fire protection equipment unless trained to do so. The sound of an evacuation alarm is slightly different than the sound of a fire alarm. Let's first listen to what an evacuation alarm sounds like. Now, listen to what a fire alarm sounds like. Whether you hear an evacuation alarm or a fire alarm, the response is the same. It's time to leave the building in an orderly fashion and meet at the emergency assembly points in the northeast corner of the plant. Once you've arrived at the evacuation area, assemble at your assigned line or area. Wait for a head count to be performed and don't enter the building or re-enter the building until an all-clear signal has been given from the supervisor or heat team member. Here's your role in fire prevention. Keep at least 3 feet clearance on all sides of fire protection equipment. Remember, Stewart's Draft is a tobacco-free factory, so designated smoking areas are your personal vehicle only for smoking, and keep flammable liquids in closed containers and flammable cabinets closed when not used. Portable fire extinguishers are a valuable fire protection tool, but they must be kept clear of obstructions and only used by qualified and trained people. Those that are qualified and trained understand the pass method. Pull the pin, aim, squeeze the handle, sweep the base of the fire. Now that we've finished emergency action plan training, let's hit the home stretch and finish up your monthly safety training with bloodborne pathogen awareness. Bloodborne pathogens mean pathogenic microorganisms that are present in human bodily fluids and can cause disease in humans. These pathogens include, but aren't limited to, hepatitis B virus, hepatitis C, and the human immunodeficiency virus, HIV. To prevent the transmission of bloodborne pathogens, we need to treat all human blood and bodily fluids as if they were known to be infectious for hepatitis, HIV, or other type of bloodborne pathogen, whether it's true or not. Universal precautions protect you and each other. If you're exposed to potentially infectious materials in your eyes, nose, your mouth, or even broken skin, immediately flood the exposed area with water and clean any wound with soap and water. Make sure to report the exposure to your team lead immediately. Don't delay. Hepatitis B vaccines are available to employees free of charge under 2 scenarios. 1, a high risk of occupational exposure such as first aiders or sanitation workers, or if an employee has been exposed to potentially infectious materials. See EHS if you believe you fall into one of these 2 categories. Don't attempt to clean up any blood or bodily fluids if you're not trained to do so. The team that is trained to do it is the first aid team. They're trained in the proper cleanup procedures, PPE, and how to handle blood and bodily fluids. Contact them for help. The least you can do, though, is keep traffic away until the help arrives. One thing to keep in mind is that all materials that have contacted blood or body fluids must be disposed of in those red biohazard bags, or a sharps container if it's glass, needles, or blades. Biohazard bags can be found in the medical department, and the sharps containers can also be found in medical or the locker rooms. That does it for this month's training. Let's review real quick. Dial 0 for medical spills or fires. Recognize at least 2 exits in your work area. Use the PASS system, pull, aim, squeeze, sweep, for fire extinguisher use. Evacuation alarm is an intermittent sounding alarm. Fire alarm is a constant sound. If you're exposed to blood or bodily fluids on the job, be sure to report it to your team lead immediately. And finally, don't attempt cleanup of blood or body fluids unless you've been trained to do so. Leave it to the first aiders. This concludes your monthly safety training on emergency response and bloodborne pathogen awareness. Don't forget to complete your quiz to receive full credit for this training. Have a great day.